Today, we are talking about how to move from overwhelmed to achievable with safety, boundaries, self advocacy, and self trust. So, you stop fighting yourself and start leading yourself. Just to give you a quick context why we are talking about this, when we say we are overwhelmed, the research usually measures stress and anxiety. In Australia, around 1 in 5 adults experience a mental disorder in a 12-month period, and anxiety is one of the biggest pieces of that. And globally, 41% employees report a lot of stress. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. And today, we are going to give you simple tools that makes it achievable. No fluff. Overwhelm isn't a failure. It's a signal that something you need support with. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to come back to yourself. Come back to your home. That is you. And you matter. I love this because the guest today also loves this, which I'm going to share. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. If overwhelm is showing up as overthinking, people pleasing, shutdown, or constant pressure, that's often a younger protective part trying to keep you safe. We got you. Right now, all you have to do is go onto my website, Transform with Rachna, and grab your free gift, How to Connect with Yourself, How to Connect with Your Inner Child. Thank you so much. Now, let's jump in. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to the Daily Life Hero, The Inconvenient Truth, the podcast where we celebrate everyday courage, the emotional truth, the tiny decisions that change everything. I'm your host, Rachna Khanna, self-leadership, connection, and influence coach, aka midlife empower coach, your emotional integration practitioner, founder of Transform with Rachna. Before we dive in, I have made a free gift, as I mentioned. Jump onto the Transform with Rachna. If you're noticing any of the patterns like people pleasing, shut it down, overthinking, please go ahead and download this free workbook, which is really going to help you. My mission is to help, touch, move, and inspire people and reignite their authentic selves. This matters to me because you matter. And thank you for being a part of this community. Our channel, Transform with Rachna, is now 9,290 subscribers, thanks to you. And I've uploaded around 341 videos. We are growing because you shared this work. Thank you so much. Let's jump in and invite our guest. Today, I'm joined by Molly Press, a compassionate coach with a lot of heart and rare ability to take life from overwhelming to achievable. She blends lived experience with practical coaching tools. And what I love is the calm, safe, grounded space she creates, where people learn to set boundaries, self advocate, achieve goals, and build self trust and self worth. While still enjoying the journey, I would love you to put your hands together and let's welcome our darling guest, Molly Press. Molly, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rashna. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I loved it. It was beautiful. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I am so loving it that you're here. Congratulations, first of all, for starting this beautiful conversation because this is so important. People need these conversations, and I'm so excited how this conversation is going to turn out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Me too. This is This is where I love to be. It's my passion area, and I could talk about these things for hours and hours. So I'm excited to see what we touch on today and what little gold nuggets come out for us.
Beautiful. Let's go and let's start the journey. Are you ready for the conversation?
I am. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. And just for listeners, we are going to share resources from our work during the episode. I would love, and I'm sure Molly would love, for you to take those resources, and utilize those resources because it'll help you. So thank you. All right, back to you, Molly. I was wondering if you could share with us what's that moment in your life that shaped how you coach today?
Such a beautiful question. And I think there's so many moments that have shaped how I coach, but something that was really stood out to me was I used to think about the life that I wanted and the person that I knew that I was on the inside. And I had this understanding that I could create that life for myself. But it was the moment when I actually started to take that action and actually fully integrate that belief that I can create the life that feels really good to me, that really works for me, and I can be exactly who I am in that life fully and shine all of my light in that. And it was that moment that I think shapes so much of what my coaching is because it's helping other people start to take that action and start to actually believe in themselves. And there's so much that happens when we find that self belief, and it just ripples into every aspect of our lives. Like, I can't put into words how much shifts when you go from knowing something and it's sort of out there a little bit to actually fully embodying it and believing it for yourself as well. And so it's a big, big part of what happens in my coaching is bringing those experiences like that I've had in my life and coming in and helping other people to also have those experiences.
Mm. That was beautiful, Molly. And I love your t shirt, Coaching with Molly. I love that. That's your brand, isn't it?
It is, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, love that. And I love what you just shared that you wanted to give that to people. There is so much that people can do in that moment that you have a choice that who you can become. I absolutely love that what you just shared. So, Molly, if you don't mind, what was that moment in your life you chose that, okay, enough is enough? This is what I want my life to be. What was that turning point, if you don't mind
Mm,
sharing with us?
yeah, absolutely. There was a few of them, but the one that's really coming to mind is I'm sitting on my lounge room floor and I've started to practice boundaries a little bit, and I'm in a situation where I've got the opportunity to start to practice self-advocacy. And I'm just sitting on my lounge room floor thinking through what's going on for me at that particular time.
Mhm.
And I went, I want this. I want to be a person that stands up for myself. I want to be a person that sets boundaries. I want to be this person that stops letting life walk all over me and
Mhm.
just fitting in that social box of this is what it has to look like. So I won't share sort of too much about it because it is private, but for me, self-advocacy started in the medical system.
Mhm.
And we're very much taught, like it's a great example because we're very much taught that in the medical system, you just show up to whatever doctor's available and you listen to whatever the advice is and you don't question it. And for me, that wasn't working. And it wasn't creating a safe space that I needed to be able to actually do what I needed to do to heal in my body. And
Mhm.
so it was really sitting with that. And I had all these emotions coming up, and that moment of going, I don't know how to self advocate. I don't know how to stand up for myself, but I'm absolutely going to try because
Mhm.
I can't not do that for myself. And that was, I think, one of those really profound moments where it just shifted. And once I made that decision and made that commitment, everything else started to flow from there.
Wow, that must have been so hard, Molly, because being in the system and not being seen and not being understood, and just and that crippling moment, I do not know how to do that. What self advocacy looks like, it can be so hurtful. So if you don't mind sharing, how did you create that safety in your body where you took that chance that no, I got this, I want to do this, like you mentioned just before, that no, enough, and I want to do this, I want to be able to talk for myself, and I want to stand for myself. How did you create that safety? How that transition happened?
It was very messy for me. I didn't have, someone in my corner. So like now I want to be a coach for somebody so they can have someone in their corner and they can have that support to sit down in a coaching session. So I have clients that will come in and go, I want to learn to set a boundary with this. And for some people, it looks like actually sitting there and acting out what that could look like so that they can start to practice saying that boundary. Or when someone's pushing against it, someone's asking me these questions, I can practice what is that feeling like in my body? Like you mentioned in the interaction, going from the stimulus to the reaction, finding that pause moment and
Yeah,
choosing how I want to react.
yeah.
I didn't have any of that. I had no idea. I just had this passion and this desire. So it was
Mm,
very, very messy for me. Um,
mm.
but I think a lot of the safety that I created was believing that I could hold myself,
Wow.
believing that no matter what happened, how anyone else reacted, no
Mm,
matter whether I got the outcome I wanted or I didn't,
mm.
that at the end of the day, I could hold myself. And
Right.
that was a huge safety turning point for me. And there was little tools that came along with that, like physical tools that you learn when you look at the nervous system. So there's ones where you can like squeeze your arms to create safety and ground into your body and all those sort of little things. And so I used a lot of tools like that that were working for me at the time. Um, but the big one was I know that no matter what else happens, I've got my own back. I can stand up for myself. I
Mm.
can say what I need to say, even if it comes out messy, even if it comes out a little bit wrong, I can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I also know that worst case scenario, I can get up and leave if I need to leave, and I can take myself away from that situation as well. I have a
Mm,
choice. I can choose to either go into this situation and do this, or I can choose to step away from it. And that was something that someone told me many, many years ago that's always stuck with me is we always have a choice and you can choose to leave. You can choose to change your mind. You can choose not to do things. And I think there's
yeah.
so much power in giving
Mm,
people that choice as well, which is something that I'll do in my coaching as well. Do you want to do this?
mm, mm.
Where would you like to be? Actively making that choice for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't have to continue going to those doctor's appointments. I could have just been like, I don't want to do this. I quit. I'm going to go somewhere else. But for me, it was important to be able to step into that and stand up for myself and find those moments for myself. And so I
Mm,
chose to still go into that situation. And because I made that choice, I think that also helped me know that I could choose to leave if I needed to as well.
mm. That was so beautiful. And thank you, Molly, for holding yourself so beautifully. Because I love the word you said, messy.
Yeah.
It is shit. It's hard and it's inconvenient. Like, just like, I really want to tell you that yes, you are a daily living life hero where the life is inconvenient at so many places. And one very important word that you mentioned is choice. That you have a choice. Do you want to accept that messiness, or do you want to, move from that messiness and become an observer of your messiness and make a choice and tell yourself that I got me and I'm not going to abandon me like I have done in the past. Well, it wasn't your fault that you were doing, because culturally we have never been taught, at least I wasn't taught, how to hold yourself, how to be with you. I was always told to be for others, pour love for others. And I love that you very clearly said the work is messy. It's hard, it's inconvenient, and you have a choice. Give yourself permission that you have a choice. Most people and the clients that I would coach and say, what can I do? I don't have a choice. Really? When you say you don't have a choice, you're choosing you don't have a choice. And there was another thing that you said, that there are tools available where in places where I did not know how to be with myself because it was so messy. How to come back to myself was to belong to me is squeeze my, arms, forearms, or, to come back and connect with my body. That is one simple tool and resource which is available. And correct me if I'm wrong, Molly, that is an instant drop of overwhelmness. That is an instant drop that, oh, no, 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 I'm in the present moment. I got me. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And for me, there is so much connected with the body as well. So I'm actually doing my Tai Chi teacher training at the moment, so I can run Tai Chi classes.
Yeah.
I'm about a week into that. And the reason is because I see so many people come into coaching and it can be very mental, similar to a
Yep.
therapy space. You're talking, a lot of it is happening internally and mentally, and there's a lot of processing going on. There's a lot of thinking about, this is where I want to be, this is what's going on, this is what I'm going to do to change it. And it's taking the body on that journey with you. And that's where the shift happens. And that doesn't always look like having to do those two things together either. Like I go to Tai Chi classes every week and I have for about 12 months. I'm not going into those Tai Chi classes thinking about how can I better myself, but I'm learning while I'm in them, how can I be in my body? How does it feel when I'm really conscious in my body of what my feet feel like on the ground, how I'm moving when I step forward, how I'm moving when I move to the side and doing certain things? And noticing that helps you drop into your body. And the more continuously you do it, the more you will learn to do that when you're in overwhelm as well, because it will become a lot more natural. And so, one of my favorite things that I do in overwhelm, but I do it on a daily basis, is deep belly breaths. And so we do it so often. We do take a deep breath and we breathe into our chest.
Mm,
And being able to drop into, can you breathe into your stomach? You can put your hand on your stomach. Can you feel your stomach move when you breathe?
mm.
And that can be a really instant drop in overwhelm, in anxiety, in fear. And it's an incredible way to create that pause moment for you to go, oh, I can just be here for a second.
Mm,
I'm in my body. And what I find is that when you can get people into their bodies or you can get yourself into your body, you have a much better internal compass of your internal yes or no, of what's working for you. And so you can make better decisions from there as well. So if someone's saying to you, um, do you want to do this? Yes or no? Do you want to go to this medical appointment? Do you want to go to the social function? Whatever it is, being able to drop into your body, you have a lot better gauge of, do I want to do it or do I not want to do it? And then that's where we can sort of come back to those boundaries and that self-advocacy as well, of having that internal yes or no and reducing that overwhelm enough to be able to hear what's really going on in our bodies and what's really going on in our hearts as well for where we want to be.
wow. I'm hearing a lot of micro steps so that we can bring that momentum fast in our body. So I would love for our listeners to notice the nuance that you just shared with us. Is in the first part of it, you told us that it is very important for us to choose. There is always a choice which is available for us, that okay, what is happening, how to get connected with our body is something that preciously you told us is deep breaths, belly breaths. you know Choose it for yourself and get into the body and connect it. And I love that you're doing Tai Chi. Tai Chi is becoming absolutely famous these days, that more and more people are becoming more aware that there are tools available. I'm not saying medicines do not help, medicines are important and they have their own place. I totally get it. tools like these. I'm so glad that you shared that Tai Chi is one of the tools which is becoming more and more famous. How to ground yourself, how to come back to your body. And one of the instant release and the instant connection you can make is breathe. Breathe. And it just allows you to come back to yourself. And it makes so much sense that, oh, okay, when I look at kids, they're all the time breathing in a way that keeps them grounded. They're running, they're huffing, they're puffing, and they're breathing. And it makes sense. But we forget as we grow because of the pressures, because of the cultural, requirements to fit in. But this makes so much sense. And if we allow ourselves to bring that momentum, that micro step that moves you away from the stress, the voice, the noises which are outside. People saying, I'm drowning. Oh my God, what is it that I can do? I'm here. Breathe. I would
Yeah.
love you to tell us, how do you help people stop self abandoning under these situations or stress?
Yeah, I love that. And before I answer that, I do just want to touch on how you mentioned about kids. Like they walk around, they make noise, and we're so conditioned that it's not okay to do that in society. And I constantly walk around my house and make noise. I will sing to myself, I will sigh loudly, I will just make random noises. And when you get used to doing that, you actually learn that you start self-regulating without even meaning to. So you could
Exactly.
be, putting the groceries away, you've just come home from the grocery store, but you're sort of walking around going, ah,
Ah,
ah. And then you're like, oh, I feel a little bit more relaxed now. And it's just allowing the body to move through that a little bit and to not try to hold on to everything so tightly. Like life's meant to be fun, it's meant to be playful, it's
yeah.
meant to be a little bit messy, like we said before.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Like, let's do it,
yeah.
Molly. I want to play with you. Ah. See, it's easy. We can do this. And, culturally, I heard, Molly, that whenever I used to give a big sigh in publicly, I would be like called off. And I said, excuse me, you can't do that. And, oh, I'm zooming in. And that's not true. It is your body is releasing stress. And you're asking people to keep stress inside your body. That's not fair. Well, I get it. They didn't know either. I get it.
Mm,
They did the best they could, whatever knowledge they had, because they just wanted to appear strong, which is not true anymore. You are
no,
strong anyways. Your
absolutely.
Yeah, your sighing or not sighing does not tell you you're strong or not. Sigh means you're releasing the pressure which is not required. I love that. I love that. Thank you, Molly, for sharing. I'm so enjoying this conversation. So back to you. Sorry, back to
That's
you.
okay.
How
And
do you help people stop self-abandoning from stress?
absolutely, I think one of the main things that I do with clients specifically, and with people to stop self-abandoning from stress is to start taking action. And that sounds very cliche. We hear it everywhere, but it's really about what is an action that works for you. And so I definitely don't believe that we all just have one pace, and it's not all goal setting doesn't look the same for everyone. Setting boundaries doesn't look the same for everyone. And learning to take actions towards building self-trust that you're not so that you're not self-abandoning doesn't look the same either. And it's really about finding, well, what is your pace? What is going to feel good for you, but what's also going to be sustainable for you? What does that pace look like? And then let's create some actions in there. What is the first thing that you would do if you really broke that down? And so I do work with a lot of people around goal setting, and they will come in and they'll go, I'm so overwhelmed. My goal is so far over here, and there is so much between here and there that I need to do. And we'll really look at, well, what is the goal? and where is the overwhelm coming in? And it won't necessarily be a deep dive into the overwhelm straight away, but it'll just be giving an understanding of what is it that's actually overwhelming you, and can we reduce that factor? Can we make those steps a lot smaller for you? Because nobody does everything overnight, ever. You don't learn to run a marathon overnight. You don't build a business overnight. You don't write a book overnight. Um, there's always going to be a first step. And it's like, what's actually that first thing that you need to do? And this is again where like I'll drop people into their bodies and you can make a better decision from there, because some people go, actually, I've been doing a lot and I just need to rest for a minute before I start the action. And that could be the first thing that they do. But then we will look at what is the first action. And it could be something really, really small. It could be something massive that they want to do for themselves. But just taking that first action and following through on, I've said I'm going to do this and I did it, starts to create that self trust. It starts to build self worth and self belief. And when you have those three things, the trust, the self worth, and the self belief, you stop abandoning yourself anyway. But to build that up, we really need to look at, can we create a goal for you? Can we create an action step that's not only a first action, but is actually achievable? How much energy do you have right now? Have you been self abandoning yourself and you're actually drained and you're tired? So your first step might look a little bit different to someone that's got boundless energy and is ready to go and was ready to hit the ground running. And making those steps achievable, you can still reach your goal, but really breaking it down, like achievability and sustainability is what's missing from a lot of our expectations at the moment. And I think that we think that if we're not doing everything at once, we're failing. Whereas realistically, if you can do things that are actually going to keep you going continuously and
Mm,
create momentum, as opposed to everything at once, then nothing at all because you're so exhausted, you've got a lot better chance at success. And that's really where I work with the self-abandoning with people, is we build up their self-trust, which self-trust, someone described it to me, it runs like a antivirus system in the background. And it will just sit back there and you won't know that it's running, you won't know it's building up, that it's doing anything until you need it. And then when you need it, it will come forward. Like, hey, remember me, I'm here. And then it'll pop back again. And building self-trust is the same. You can't build it by putting all of your focus on it. It builds
mm,
in the background, it builds through these other things that you're doing. But having people have a little bit of consciousness around self-trust, what does that look like for you? Where is that at for you now? Then we look at building action. We look on, showing up. And showing up could just be sitting down and having a coaching call with someone. It could be following through on actions, whatever that looks like. And
mm,
then we check back in along the way. How's that self-trust going now? Do you realize that you've actually done all these action steps that you wanted to do? Have you taken the time to notice where you're at?
mm,
And that self abandonment, just in the background, the same as the self trust is building, it starts to decrease in the background as well. And so I think that can sometimes make it really simple for people. And it sounds sort of complex. There's a lot of things that you're working on at once, but people are showing up and they're going, I want to create my dream life. I want to achieve my goals. Along the way, I'm going to set boundaries and I'm going to learn to self advocate for myself, because that's who I want to be and need to be to get there. And at the same time, I'm going to build my self trust. And it can be so simplified, but all those things are so integrated together that they'll all happen at the same time anyway, even without you putting in a lot of effort towards all of them, which is really,
mm.
really nice. My other big one for self abandoning and actually building that self trust is to celebrate yourself. Like, I love to celebrate myself. I've gotten really good at it. um, but that can look really different for lots of different people as well. And so celebrating yourself, I've had clients who buy a coffee and they go to the beach. I've had people who put on music and dance around the house. I've had people who just go up to the mirror and go, you did it today. And then they have a little giggle with themselves. Or, they might message a friend and say, hey, I did this thing that I wanted to do. It can be big or it can be small. But the point of the celebration is that you acknowledge, hey, I came in and I did this thing. And I'm really proud of myself for that. I'm proud because I showed up. I'm proud because I did the thing that I said that I was going to do. And acknowledging that is where you build the self trust, is where you start to build the self belief, is where you find the self worth. There's so often that we're taking the action and we're doing the things that we say we're going to do. but we're not really building the self-trust with that because we're not noticing that we're doing it. And so we don't realize. And so then when the big things come up, we then abandon ourselves with it. Whereas when we can notice those small steps along the way, when the
Mm.
big things come up, we then go, oh, I know I can do this. It's a little bit harder, might be a little bit of a bigger step, but I also recognize I've been doing this over and over and over again in all these different ways as well. And it's phenomenal what it does to people's self trust and to stop them from self abandoning.
Hmm. Oh, that was beautiful. I absolutely love it. And what you just mentioned is so precious as well in itself, that actions. It starts with simple actions. You don't have to know the whole staircase, just one step at a time. Just take that one action and celebrate. And celebrate that you took that action. And most often, people will self critic part would come in. What's the big deal if you took that first step? You have to go that far. You're not even there. And I loved how we break it, how we pay attention to just one thing: action, celebrate equals self trust. That, okay, there could be thousand steps in whatever I want to achieve. I am one step ahead. I took that one step, I took that action, I am celebrating that action, and I'm building the self trust. Thank you. It is beautiful. It is magical. I love how it sequenced it, and how in various different ways that people can celebrate, people can take action. And there is a self motivation, which is pulling. It's not that we're pushing, but it's pulling. Okay, I have taken that action. I'm going to celebrate it. I trust myself. I'm friends with myself, which is good. I love that. I love that. So, Molly, I have a question for you because in my work, I teach a simple method called self method. Self method, I'm not saying that, it is absolutely, you have to follow the way it is mentioned. No, absolutely no. But it does help, like, in your steps. My steps would be a self method. It all starts with you. It all starts with you. How do you see yourself? What are the expressions you are using for yourself when you express anything, whether it is anger, whether it is love, whether it is sadness, any spectrum of emotion? How are you expressing it to yourself? How do you see yourself? What is your love language? How do you show love for yourself? Do you show that compassion to yourself? And in what areas, what are the parts that will show up if you take that new challenge? Well, how does your nervous system do? And then once you're able to do that, you see yourself, you express the way you want to without self-abandoning. And what is your love language? How do you celebrate? And how do you keep it going? How do you flourish it? That's something that I created from my own experience, that this is a gift I wanted to give it to people. So when you hear this method, self method, what do you think most people need first? Seeing the truth, or expressing it, or learning self compassion?
Good big question.
Yeah.
I love your method.
Thank you.
I think it's definitely one that I've been on before, and I've definitely used that before as well, through my personal experiences. So I do know that that does work really, really well for people. And it's an incredible method to have, especially when someone can lay it out for you. And it makes it a
Yes.
little bit easier to navigate as well. Um, the first step for people, I think
So
it
I,
can
I can,
change.
yeah,
Hey,
would it be the truth, that how they see themselves, how they express, and or learning the self compassion? What would it be for them?
think it definitely changes with a lot of people, but I think self-compassion is a big one to start with because a lot of people to be able to look at themselves, they need to have, like, especially through the lens that we're looking at with a method like that. So we're
Mm,
looking at yourself not through criticism, not through judgment, not through guilt or shame or any of those things. You're wanting to look at yourself from a lens of, I want to be better and I believe that I can do it. I believe that I'm worthy of this. And sometimes for people to even turn their heads towards that, they need to have a little bit of self compassion to
mm,
even be able to start to look at that because some people have such a deep pattern of self doubt and self judgment that the idea of self trust is they're never even going to look at it because
mm,
that's far too confronting. And I definitely think that having a little bit of compassion, whether it's with yourself, whether it's with other people, is the way that we are going to heal the world a little bit more every single day. And I definitely think it's a massive first step when looking at any of these methods, when looking at going into any sort of coaching space or anything. It's just learning to have a little bit of compassion with yourself, a little bit of
exactly.
patience, and a little bit of you may not be at a point of self love or self trust,
Mm,
but you can be compassionate enough with yourself to show up and go, let's just see what's here and let's see what I want to do with what's here.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I've always, and thank you for this. Thank you. I really want to acknowledge and thank you for your share that yes, in my all the work that I've done, and including myself in my own inconvenient journey, self compassion was missing big time, big time. I had no love language at all. I did not know that I can speak to myself with respect. It was like negotiable. Oh, it's okay. I'm dumb. I'm silly. I can make people upset. There was no compassion for myself at all. I would just be the highly critical person about myself. So that also leaded me to be a perfectionist. I would spend 10 hours for a job which will only take maybe 1 hour or 2 hours because I did not want anybody to see any mistake in my work. I hated making mistakes. So zero compassion. And I want to invite our listeners. Once you start demonstrating that self compassion for yourself, it's a gift that you can give it to yourself. That tiny step can change a lot, a lot. It's okay if you can make mistakes. It's okay if you sound silly. It's okay if you ask dumb questions because there are so many people who cannot ask those questions, and you're one of them. And compassion is one of the biggest learning in my journey of healing. And what are your thoughts on it? When people come to you, do they demonstrate? You have already partially answered that question for me, but how do you tell people that whenever you are at that stage of your life, bring self compassion?
I was actually thinking about something today when it comes to
Mm,
making mistakes as adults
mm,
and like building that self-compassion. And I was thinking about how we're so conditioned in society that as an adult, if you're going to make mistakes, you do it in private and you only come out, like you just said, you spend 10 hours doing something, you come out when it's perfect.
mm,
And you go and you practice those things privately. And it's to the point that a lot of people don't even feel like they can make mistakes when they're by themselves and when they're doing something privately. And it's starting to shift now that adults are allowed to go out and they learn and they're allowed to try new things and they're allowed to be beginners again. We're so conditioned that you're only a beginner when you're a child, and once you finish school, you're a fully formed adult that's popped out into the world and you do not change. That's how you are. It's not at all true. And the more you try to hold on to that, the harder it's
yeah.
going to be. Like the more you're just going to suffer. And I just find it really amusing. And I had to go through this myself to learn to go into different classes and different spaces and do different things and let myself be a beginner and let myself have fun with it. Like playfulness is such a big thing that
True.
we are missing. We forget that we're allowed to have fun. I sometimes do Legos that are aimed at 6-year-olds for no other reason than it brings me a little bit of nostalgic joy for an
Yeah.
hour and it
Yeah.
brings playfulness into my day.
Yeah.
Um, Finding those spaces, and it is more normalized now. Like, how many paint and sip classes do we have, at least in Australia, where people are
Yeah.
going out and going, oh, I'm just going to go and do this painting, even though I've never painted anything in my life. And
Yeah.
it's going to be fun, and we're going to have a giggle and see what happens. And it's applying that to everything, it's applying that to learning about yourself as well. Having that
Mm.
self compassion means letting yourself make mistakes, letting it
Mm.
be messy, letting it not be perfect the first time, and changing that expectation from I'm going to do this perfectly to I'm going to give this a go.
Yeah.
Like if you have those expectations of it has to look like this, and it comes down with healing and everything else as well, if it has to look a particular way, then you're probably going to be disappointed. Whereas if you just go in and go, I'm going to give this a go, I'm going to show up to myself, I'm going to try dancing around my kitchen and moving my body and see how it feels, no matter what it looks like or whether I can think I can dance or not. And that's where the beauty of life really is. And that's where it happens. And it's in all those moments that we hold so strongly onto being this perfect little adult that was popped out at some point that society decided was fully formed, that we forget to find those things that bring us joy. We
Mm.
forget that we can change and shift and do different things throughout our life. And I had a client recently, and we spoke about how the transitions that they're going through, rediscovering themselves, rediscovering new hobbies and what they like, their children are learning from them that you can do that at any point in life, whether you're in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, your 20s, your 30s, or if it's after a big life transition. Like there are these moments that we go in and we rediscover ourselves just for the joy of it, just for the joy of going, hey, I'm now at this age. I've never played golf before. Who knows? I may love it. I'm going to go out and try golf.
Yeah.
I've never traveled to this country before. I'm going to go and try that, and maybe I'll fall in love with it, or maybe I'll really enjoy the cuisine and come home and learn how to cook it. Like
Yeah.
we get this diversity in our lives and this diversity of experiences, and all of that comes down to having the compassion with ourselves to be able to just go within and go, what do I want to try today? Who do I
Yeah.
want to be?
Yeah.
what Where would I like to be? And a lot of that you can go and practice in all of those sort of like safe spaces,
Yeah.
essentially by going to the art class. And you can
Yeah.
play with that, even if it feels scary to look within. And you can build that muscle before you bring it in, if that's what's safe for you as well. So
Yeah.
I think that self-compassion is crucial in everything that we do.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. And I love the example that you gave that, you know, just taking it extra leg over there, that we don't expect kids to be perfect. Like we are not asking kids, okay, you're born, you're perfect now, you do your things. Of course not. And we demonstrate that compassion, that it's okay if you fall down, especially when they're learning to walk, especially when
Mhm.
they're learning to eat. Oh my God, how much mess they do, how much mess they create. And we love it. I have always, it gave me joy to see my child learn all that, walking, talking, singing, learning to dance, putting her first step to the next step, and holding hands, cuddling, hugging. There was no judgment whatsoever. It was only love, there was only compassion. If they fell down, we would only say, it's okay. You will do it. Come on, you can do this. And it was with joy and compassion and love. And we just forget to give it to ourselves. We just forget to water ourselves. And we forget that we can grow into this beautiful human being that we are meant to be. But we do forget that. So thank you for that reminder. And I love what you and I, as a work we do, we are asking people to water the seed of compassion for themselves. So thank you for your work that you're doing, Molly.
Okay.
I really appreciate. And I was wondering if you could tell me, you know, Because when it talks about self-compassion, people find it very, very hard. Why they can't be compassionate because of the cultural or enmeshment that we have been, or the societal expectation. Often people do not have boundaries. They feel guilty about having boundaries. They don't know the difference between self advocacy or selfish. There is more common self love is equals to selfish. That's not even true. That's far, far from the truth. And people really struggle with boundaries. I'll be honest, I have struggled with boundaries. I've just been able to learn it 2 years back. But before that, I was a big time people pleaser. And I have seen so many people like myself, people please, and they will let people walk over them. Like today in the morning when it happened, someone approached me to have a meeting, and I was like, no, we did not decide on the time. We're not going to have that meeting. It was difficult. All my parts came out. Oh my God, what does that mean? How can you say no? It's okay. And then I had to show that compassion. I would love your thoughts. Why do you think boundaries feel so hard for people? What is the difference between a boundary and a control?
I think the reason boundaries feel so hard is actually really simple. And I believe that it's so hard because we just weren't taught how to do it. And similarly, like we
Mhm.
were speaking before about, you let kids learn and you teach them how to do
Mm,
these things, but we're not taught things like how to set boundaries. And not only are we not taught how to set them ourselves, we're also taught that you show up to the boundaries that other people set.
mm,
And so,
mm,
like, especially as a child, you're growing up. And I think it's changing in the younger generations now, but for all of us that are currently adults, a lot of people were in family settings where, and it wasn't always necessarily, a bad thing, but just in family settings where the parents set the boundaries, the parents set the rules, and that never changed. And then you became a teenager, and a lot of people are sort of rebelling a little bit in their own ways, whatever that looks like. And then you get these people pleaser adults that have no boundaries and they're showing up to everyone else's boundaries all the time because that's the only thing that they were ever shown. And it's only hard because we don't know how to do it. And that doesn't stop it from being hard. Like it is very difficult. I was absolutely not taught how to set boundaries either. And again, it was something that was very messy for me how to learn. Um, I think that's the biggest thing is we're just not taught how to do it. And going in and learning how to do that as an adult, like we were talking about before, having that self-compassion to make mistakes, boundaries is something you can't learn behind a closed door by yourself. You
mm,
have to have other people there that are pushing your boundaries for you to set them.
mm,
And so it can be really daunting and feel really vulnerable to be in those spaces and be practicing something very raw, very personal, and that can bring up a lot of emotions in front of other people and you don't know how they're going to react. There is ways to make that safe or safer as well, though. Like you can practice, like I said before, like I've had clients where we will actually play that out in a session and they'll say to me, I really want to set this boundary. And I'll go, okay, well, what happens for you when that boundary gets crossed? What are people saying to you? What are they asking you? Do you want me to role play that for you? Do you want me to push against that boundary for you so that you can practice saying it? Like you mentioned before, see how it feels in your body. Notice what's coming up for you. Is there anything else there that we want to move through, or is it just a matter of practice? I can also practice setting boundaries in ways that people don't notice. And so you can set these really, really tiny ones that other people don't notice, but for you feel massive. And so you can get that practice in. But yeah, I definitely think that's why it's hard. And the other thing that makes it hard is that we have this idea and this expectation of how people will react to that.
mm,
And well, from what I see, it's usually either I'm not going to set a boundary because I'm expecting that going to get really angry with me, or they're going to get really upset. It's going to be really confronting. It's going to be horrible. Or I'm hoping to set this boundary and everyone's just going to say, yep, no worries. And nothing else is going to happen. And sometimes both of those things do happen. Sometimes those expectations do come true.
Real
But what
Ghana
I
WhatsApp
find
audio. Sorry.
is that that's okay.
Daughter calling.
It's just
Yes, sorry,
messy.
go ahead. Please.
Um, and what I find is that a lot of the time when people go, oh, setting that
Mm-hmm.
boundary, there could be confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
When we can learn to set them or just start to practice them in a bit more of a wholesome way where we've got a little bit of space to talk to someone about it, understand what the boundary is, understand how our body might feel and how we're going to look after that. Um, a lot of the time people don't react as badly as what we think they're going to.
Mm.
And there's always that option that it may happen. But I think it's remembering that to lessen our expectations, but also remember that what we can control is our boundaries and how we show up to ourselves and the people around us, and how other people show up is up to them at the end of the day. We can't control any of that. And I think that's the difference between boundaries and control is boundary is I'm going to set this boundary for me and but I can't control the outcome of that to a degree. You control a little bit of the outcome because like the meeting this morning, you said no. You know, the outcome is that it's not going to go ahead because you've set that boundary. Um, but you can't control how other people react or what happens from that. And it's having compassion with yourself. And like we talked about with self-advocacy, knowing that you can hold yourself in that moment
Mm-hmm.
as well, or even just learning to hold yourself in that moment. Um, and then also having a little bit of compassion for the other person. If they react really badly, maybe they also weren't taught boundaries when they were little.
Yeah,
You don't have to
so
stick
true.
around and take that on,
Mhm.
but you can also sort of send them a little bit of compassion as well and then move on with what you need to do.
True. So true. Oh my God. This is such a good conversation because sometimes people forget in boundaries when they're learning, especially when they're learning boundaries, that I love using this sentence or statement. No is a complete sentence. You can
Mm-hmm.
say no. You're allowed to say no. And people might find it very, very confronting. How can I say no? I've never said no. I'm a yes person, you know. And if I say no, I feel very guilty. I feel that I have upset the person, which of course I understand that people don't know those are people pleasing, uh, you know um, things that we have carried, and we don't even know that these are the traits that we have. That yes, I'm a big time people pleaser. And when I was told I'm a people pleaser, I said, bullshit. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm not that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a big time people pleaser. I say yes to almost everything. And when I started saying no, and I started getting the resistance from people, like you just mentioned, beautiful thing, maybe they were not also taught what is a boundary. There were rules in the house that you only listen to me, and that's what they took it. That I demand you to give me your time. They became rebellion in the process and they did not know what boundary exactly means. So, boundary for me, it's self love. It's saying yes to yourself. It is a short way of saying, I'm not going to self abandon myself anymore. I'm going to show up for myself. And I love this that you share that you can give that compassion to people where they find it difficult. That, oh my God, how dare she say no to me? In this context, I will give an example of my father. And so, how can you say no to me? So, that I can because I don't want to do that. How can you say that? I did just did. So that was a beautiful reminder that I just got flashed. I said, okay, this is hard. My father was never taught what boundaries were, and I get it. And I am able to give that compassion, not only just for me, but for him as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I think there's definitely something that I learned through my experience that we are not taught how to set boundaries, but we're also not really taught how to deal with other people's boundaries very well. And so there's this thing that happens, which you may have experienced when you start to learn how to set boundaries. And then suddenly someone else sets boundaries with you and you go, oh, oh, now I want to be like, how dare you say no to me? And there's
Exactly.
this reactivity that comes up. And if you can catch it, you kind of go, oh, they've just set a boundary. This is uncomfortable for me, but I understand that I've also done the same thing and I've set
Yeah,
boundaries too, and that's good on them for doing that.
true.
And I'll go away and deal with my uncomfortableness. But
Yeah.
it's this interesting thing that does happen where you learn to set boundaries, but you also need to learn how to listen to boundaries.
Listen.
And those two things can be vastly separate when we're
Yeah,
learning them,
exactly. Separate, but
but are
they can
needed.
go. Yeah, they
Yeah.
go hand in hand. That's exactly I teach inside my self-love, a midlife reset, because most women in midlife, they have been a caregiver, they have played different roles, mother, wife, daughter, daughter-in-law, friend, sister-in-law. They've been giving, 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 giving. And there are people who are takers, takers, takers. Okay, we need to do a reset, because boundaries are not the attitude, it is the self-trust in action. Remember that you were talking, in our prior conversation, that take that step, take that action. Action equals that you're celebrating that you did it, and that builds self-trust. And that's exactly what we do in our program. I do in my program. So Molly, what's the biggest mistake people make? We have already spoken about it, but just to reiterate so that people really understand the difference when they're trying to set boundaries.
First one that comes to mind is there's so many that I could think of. The first one that comes to mind is what you've just said with celebrating yourself.
Mm.
Sometimes people put so much energy and effort into setting the boundary and they do it and then they kind of walk away and they've got all these feelings because they might feel a little bit guilty, might feel a little bit shame. It may not have gone quite as well as they wanted
Yeah.
to, even if, and not going well doesn't mean that someone is necessarily comes back aggressively to you. It can
Mm.
also mean that someone maybe just they accepted your boundary, but they didn't really put much stock in it. They just kind of went, yeah, no worries. And off they went again. And you might still go, I know they said yes and they did what I wanted them to do, but I still don't feel fully heard or seen. Um, there's so many ways that could happen. The act of actually showing up to yourself, whether you're setting a boundary for the first time, whether it's with a particular person in a particular situation, is a big deal. And then stopping to go, regardless of how it went, I showed up to myself and remembering that. And I think that's sometimes a mistake that people make is that they forget part that
Mm.
I did show up to myself and I did do it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think the other one is just having too many expectations on how it might turn out as opposed to letting people surprise you a little bit. Because some
Mm.
people will go, wow, I just didn't realize. Thank you for telling me. And you could even be modeling to other people, even if they do react like your dad did, as you mentioned, he might then go, oh, okay, I'm starting to learn from this interaction, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And he might then start to have better boundaries because you've showed him what that looks like. And so there's all these benefits that can come out of it when we let people surprise us a little bit. And like, you just said you had a little bit of a laugh, how he was like, how can you say that? You're like, oh, I did it. It's done now. And sometimes it can be that simple, like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. You did do that.
I did that, and I love this. I love this. And you know what? I think there's one more, and please add on to this, Molly. People, because it's new, it's so fresh that you're learning to love yourself. You're learning to show that compassion. People often make that tiny little self-critic for themselves and start over-explaining why I'm doing that. Especially when
Mhm.
they're learning to set boundaries. And and I always go back and tell my clients, it's okay. If your little one, like you said, if your little part of you wants to do that sometimes, it's okay. And slowly and gradually, it'll become you wiring your brain. You don't have to over explain. Once it's set, that's what you do it. Like, for example, just for an example, if I like to eat at a certain hour, most of the times I will eat at that certain hour. If once or twice, it's okay. I'm only human, right? Time can change. I can go to some other city, timelines could be different. I can do that. We are humans, right? We can do it. It's not something it's graved in stone. I'm not saying boundaries are flexible, no. But boundaries does not invite other people to change it the way they want it. Boundaries means that I'm not going to self abandon myself. If something does not sit well with me, am I authentic to myself? How do I feel in my body? That's what matters. And that's what makes it initially maybe unfamiliar to people. And oh my God, how do I do that? A part of me says, oh my God, how could you do that? So, my question to you would be the people who would feel instant shame coming up or guilt coming up. Oh my God, I did say that. Are they hurt? Would they talk to me? Will I belong to them? What do you help clients meet their parts without that does not make them feel overwhelmed? What would be that step? How would you do that for your clients?
A fantastic question. And I loved your share just then around, especially your example with dinner, that sometimes it will change a little bit. And I think when we were talking about the mistakes, just going back for a second, sometimes what people will do is they'll go, oh, I'm going to set boundaries. But then they hold on to those boundaries so tightly that they become rigid and they
Yeah.
start to miss out on life a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, they might miss out on having dinner with someone new because they're
Exactly.
like, I have to eat at this time every single night. Um, and when you get really, really rigid, and I've seen it happen, I've seen people miss out on birthdays and weddings and those big important events where you're actually creating connection and building relationships because their boundaries are so rigid
Yeah.
that they haven't learned, okay, well, where do I actually want to let this go a little bit where I'm not letting go of my boundary, but I'm still showing up to what feels good for me. And I
Mm.
love the way you recap that, like boundaries are, if something doesn't feel good for me, then
Mm.
it's a no. Not necessarily it has to look this way every single day for the rest of my life and nothing
Mm.
else can affect it. And I think that's a big difference as well. Um, Shame and overwhelm is a little bit harder. I don't know if you can always escape those feelings completely, especially when you're
Mm.
learning to set boundaries for the first time and you're learning to self advocate for the first time because we're human.
Mm.
Those things are going to come up at some point.
Yeah.
Um, I think sometimes it's, again, having a little bit of compassion with ourselves. Do I need to feel a lot of shame about this? Or is it, like you said, just uncomfortable because it's new?
Yeah.
Can I really sit in my body and identify those feelings? Why am I feeling shame? And sometimes people will feel shame, and when they actually look at it and think about it, they'll go, oh, well, actually, it's not really shame that I'm feeling.
Mm.
It just felt like I was supposed to feel that. And so I kind of just did it anyway, subconsciously.
Mm.
Um, and something that I find really helps with boundaries is knowing your values. And when you know what values are attached to your boundaries, I find that people are less likely to either feel or stay in the shame and the guilt because
Mm.
they know what the value is that's driving that. And so, um, an example that I heard the other day in a book was um, someone had um, been asked to work overtime and stay late one night, but they had something on with their family.
Mm.
And they, in that particular circumstance, the event that they had on their family was something that they put really, really high value on. And so it was a lot easier for them to then say, sorry, I can't work late tonight
Mm.
because I've already got something planned with my family and I can't
Yeah.
cancel that. And so knowing your values and what's attached to the boundaries, I think can sometimes really help to eliminate some of those feelings because you understand why that's important to you, why it's
Mm.
important for you to show up in that way.
Mm.
And you feel a little bit less guilty when you know that you're showing up to those values, especially if, like we mentioned, it's spending time with your family or something like that.
Mm.
I think that makes a big difference for people sometimes with those things. And boundaries, like you said before, no is a complete sentence. It can just be, no, sorry, that's not going to work for me. Sorry, I'm busy that day. There can also be nuance. If you really want to do something, or you think that something is really necessary to do, but that time doesn't work for you, instead of people pleasing your way through it and just going, oh, yes, I'll cancel everything else and I'll bend over backwards.
Mm.
Like the work example is really good. Sorry, I can't work late that night, but I can come in the next morning. That would work for me. Does
Mm.
that also work for you? Sorry, I'm really busy that day, but I'd love to be able to support you the next time that you need help with this. Or I'd love to be able to see you another day. Here's when I'm free. Does this work for you?
Yeah.
And so we have those nuances as well. You don't want to be over explaining yourself or offering these things if you're generally like, this is just a no for me.
Mm.
But a boundary also doesn't can be a not right now
Okay,
as
right.
well. And sometimes we forget that and we're just like, nope, 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 I can't do anything because I'm setting my boundaries. And it's like, would you like to do that thing? Well, let's see, is there a middle ground that we can come to?
Yeah.
Um, and there's really nice ways to set boundaries as well. It doesn't have to be aggressive or harsh or really strict. There can be really kind and friendly ways to set boundaries as well. Like it doesn't have to be this big, scary, horrible, hard conversation all the time.
Ah, absolutely. I loved how you attached it with the values because in our workspace, Molly, you and I work so much in value space that people
Mm,
don't even know what their values are, and they're just thinking, "Oh, that's my biggest value." And we when we start doing the values work, that value sits on top 10, not even in top 10. Maybe it's in top 20, and the biggest value turns out to be something very different. And I said, "Wow, you're spending so much time on this, but you didn't even know that you value this so much." And
yeah,
I believe that knowing one's value is so important. It is such an important work that one can do. It just totally shifts the way you want to work and how it just lists down everything for you. Oh, now I know why I was self abandoning. Now I know why I keep saying yes when I have to say no. When you get to know your values, they're right in front of you, boundaries work become easier. And I know for the fact that you and I work in the values work. So I have a question for you. If somebody were to download a workbook on values, what do you think they will get benefit of?
workbook on values. I think the biggest benefit is one, knowing your values. A lot of people, like you said, don't.
True.
And so I think the biggest
Absolutely.
benefit is knowing what your values are. And it's something I teach even in my goal setting course. We look at
Exactly.
what are your
Yeah.
values, not only what are they, but what are they right now? Because they may
Yeah.
change
They
as
may
well. And
change.
checking in with yourself as
Yeah.
life shifts.
Yeah.
Um, how many times do you hear of parents that one of the highest values is caring for their children?
Yeah.
But eventually their children go out and have their own families and care for themselves, and those values shift to then, well, these are some things like they still obviously care for their children,
Yeah.
but they may have some space to bring in other values that maybe they didn't before. And it's same when we change jobs, we change lifestyles, we move countries, like all these things that happen in our lives, and our values start to change, especially when we start to go inwards and actually learn what they are. We
Mm.
might have thought we knew what they were, but actually have no idea.
Yeah.
And so I think that's definitely the biggest thing that you would get from it is one, learning what are your values right now.
Yeah.
But two is probably also learning how do my values affect what I do, affect my
Mm.
actions, affect my boundaries, affect the goals I have,
Mm.
the way I raise my family, the way that I show up in relationships. How do
Mm.
my values actually ripple out into all these areas of my life? And
Mm.
do I like the way those values show up in my life? Or are they not
Mm.
quite aligning for me and I want to make some adjustments there?
Mm.
I think a really fantastic example is that, like, one of my values is the community and being able to support local community. And for me, for a long time, that meant donating. And sometimes I'd go out and do walks and things to raise money, but it very much looked just through that lens. And then one day I realized that I was looking at giving to the community through one lens. And when I started to explore what that could look like in different ways, I started to go, oh, well, I can go down to the community center and I can run workshops and I can do Tai Chi classes and I can be
Yeah.
part of classes where I'm just showing up in the community and talking to people and putting some money into local community things. It looks like for me, $5 from every single session goes towards a local charity, no matter
Oh,
what the session is on. Like that's something that I do with my business. I
yeah.
also then get all my business cards and t-shirts and everything else from local community places. And so once I started to broaden what does this value look like in my life? What is this value to begin with? Where is it showing up? And sort of start to play around and explore that. I actually went, I've been limiting myself because I thought I was showing up to this value and I still was in many ways, but I was
Mm,
limiting how I was showing up to this value because there's
mm,
actually all these other things that I love to do. And there's different ways I can give to my community. There's different ways I can just be in my community. And there's a quote I heard recently that I love. If you want a village, you have to be a villager. It's not
well,
standing on the outside. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
True,
a
true, true.
powerful one. And
Yeah.
so when you want to, like when we're talking about boundaries and values and you're finding communities that you want to have, especially if you're going through rediscovering yourself later in life, you're looking at, well, what are my values?
Mm,
And do the people around me have similar values? Do the groups that I'm in reflect my values?
mm,
And they're the places that we really start to light up. Because if we're in places that don't align with our values, that's when our boundaries are being crossed. That's when we're just people pleasing. That's when we're in spaces that don't really align. Um, so, yeah, I think there's so much to be learned from just knowing what your values are and looking at where they're showing, where and how they're showing up in your life
mm.
and letting yourself explore that again and just noticing and then evaluating.
I love that. Actually, you've answered my, next set of questions that how do you help people enjoy the journey and not just chase outcomes? Because you just mentioned that it is so important to do the values work, what lights you or what brings joy. Because we are not chasing outcomes. We are not getting into the grill of pressure. But what gives you joy? What is that one value that will light you up every day of your life? and and that is how you stay aligned. Ask yourself that question: what is one thing that I can do to inspire me today and not somebody else? Okay, I got zoomed in. I'm inspiring right now to me that there is a work that we can do it, and Molly and I can really help people to know what matters most to them and how this overwhelmness can just disappear, can start to disappear, because the more and more you start to show up for yourself, you self advocate, you bring that choices, you bring that action, you bring that self trust, it all begins to shape up. Isn't that good, Molly? What a beautiful conversation.
Absolutely. And I always describe coaching to people as just having someone to support you in your corner. And it is,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
support on that journey of
Yeah. I have
rediscovering
coaches.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I
Same.
have three coaches to coach me. Coach does not mean that I am perfect and I know it all. No, today it freaks me out. My people pleaser came out. Oh my God, I want to help that person. I want to help that person. No, I can't do it all. I'm only one. And I need a coach for me to just tell me, okay, what is most important for me? And what is that boundary I want to remind myself of? So, yeah, beautiful. I have some quick fire questions for you. Are you ready for them? Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. First one: a belief you had to unlearn.
That I was bad at public speaking.
Ooh. I'm so glad that you unlearned that. Well done. Second one: a boundary you're proud of.
Boundary I'm proud of. Wow. Definitely the boundaries I set in the medical setting.
I love that.
I work
Congratulations for
hard on
that.
those ones.
Yeah, it was messy. It was inconvenient. You did it anyways.
Yeah,
And one daily practice that keeps you grounded.
that would have to be my deep belly breaths.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know we've
Yeah.
talked about all these things, all these answers already, but they're so integrated into my life that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and that leads to the last question, which I have a feeling you've already answered, but let's repeat it for our listeners. If someone is overwhelmed right now or today, what's one thing they can do in the next 10 minutes?
I want to say go outside and just put your feet in the grass or in the sand for 5 minutes. It'll make a big difference. Just stop and feel what that feels like on your feet. If you can't go outside, have a wiggle, move the body, and take a couple of deep belly breaths.
Absolutely. I love that. Absolutely love that. I want to tell all our listeners right now something very, very important that I'm feeling it. If this episode is landing for you, go grab your free Inner Child Young Paths workbook. Whether it is boundaries or whether it is that you want to connect with yourself, please go and grab your copy. It is available on transformwithrachna.com. These are the guides that I have created for you. It is simple, gentle, practical. It helps you stop fighting yourself and start building self trust. I'm also going to share what Molly has to share, her workbooks, her expertise that I'm going to invite her to share next because this is important. This work is important. I get it. It is inconvenient. It is messy, but you matter and it is important. So, Molly, for someone listening right now, thinking, oh my God, what Molly just said, this is me, this is who I am. What is the best next step to work with you? Where should they find you?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I do one-on-one sessions quite regularly, and so on my website, which will all be in the show notes, so you can just go and click the links. So on my website, I do have just one-off one-on-one bookings, but I also have packages that make those bookings a little bit cheaper as well. I'm also running my goal setting program, which goes for 7 to 8 weeks, again on the 23rd of February. And so, if there are any listeners from this podcast specifically that would like to be a part of that, I do have a special discount just for your podcast listeners as a little thank you for today. So, if they just email the word goals to my email, which will also be in the show notes, I can send them the discount, everything they need for that. And I also have some free resources. So, my YouTube channel, I have some free meditations for dropping into the body. I've got one about having a safety net and recognizing where your safety net is and feeling safe in your body as well. And they're just free little meditations that I create when I'm in sessions with clients, and I do them very intuitively. So I have those on there. And I also have a lot of little tips on my Instagram, Coaching with Molly. And I'm going to start, once I finish my Tai Chi certificate, doing little Tai Chi videos every single week. So if you want some free Tai Chi to come and get in your body, that's where that will be as well, which I think will be really, really fun.
I love that. Molly, thank you so much. I love the way you bring safety, simplicity, and heart and make this growth feel so achievable.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
really
so
want to
much.
thank you. Thank you. Today conversation has touched my heart and I am trusting that our listeners are going to get huge benefits. There were so many gold nuggets. There were so many sequential steps that we discussed and they're doable. They're achievable. Just like what you mentioned that there is a pause that you can take and you are able to do that by just following those simple steps. These resources are going to help you. If you want support, building self trust, boundaries, emotional safety, your next step is simple. Molly and I are here to help you in your journey. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Molly, once again for being here and sharing your heart, your tools, your resources with us. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much for your beautiful energy, Rachna. And it's been an incredible conversation today.
Absolutely. And you listeners, thank you so much. And if you're ready to for a deeper support, check out self-love, check out the resources that Molly and I are going to share with you. If this episode has helped you, share it with one person who needs it and leave a review. So this message reaches more humans who feel alone. And remember, you are a daily life hero. And I got you. Molly got you. Until next time, you deserve to know you. See ya.
Bye.